In music, acting, art, lots of artistic fields, you can attend what's called a master class. A master class is where somebody who's really experienced at doing something comes in and teaches the subtleties of, for example, playing the piano. So the piano student may get all the notes right, but there's no expression or feeling. And a master class is where a master teacher comes in and teaches the student how to do this. Express. This letter that I got from my mother is kind of a master class in parenting. It's a little on the advanced side, but it can show you what's possible. It's the result of a great deal of loving and teaching. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes we want to see what's in store for us later on, and here we are, masterclass in parenting. Assume that she knows a whole lot about this, and nobody can do this right off. It's fun. She says, my 9-year-old, Mason, has a screen addiction. What 9-year-old doesn't? For 3 months now, he and his 3 younger brothers have been on a screen fast, essentially no screens except for schoolwork and specific searches, all of which are supervised. And it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made. Listen to Mom here. She says, even though Mason has been sober for 3 months, still every once in a while, he pines for his favorite drug, the device. Yeah, no kidding. This mother brilliantly recognizes that screens are a true addiction, meaning any substance or behavior that we use compulsively that has negative consequences and that we can't easily quit. That's an addiction. Longer definitions don't help us. And yes, 3 months is barely the beginning of sobriety, would hardly qualify. Mom continues, tonight at bedtime, our conversation went something like this. Mason says, Mom, can I use my computer to get on Amazon and look for toy grenades? He asks. And I'm thinking, how could you resist any request that contained the word grenade, right? I mean, of course. So Mason, now with a little heat to his tone, says, when Mom says, no, not tonight, he says, you always say not now, just a little tone. And Mom says, I don't always say not now. Just 2 days ago, we searched together on Amazon for something for you. Mason, now with a noticeable attitude, the heat is building. What's the point of having a computer if I can never use it? And I'm thinking, powerful reasoning. Clever, seems almost undeniable, right? I mean, kind of like, what's the point of having water in the toilet if we don't drink it? What's the point of having rattlesnakes outside if we don't play with them? How can you resist reasoning like that? When it comes to getting what they want, children suddenly become geniuses. They do. When it comes to responsibilities like, picking up their clothes, suddenly they become mentally challenged. Like, what do you mean, Mother? Picking up my clothes? It's perfect acting. Mom says in a perfectly normal tone, to Mason, I said, go to the car seat. Now, this is Mom speaking. Mason knows that in our home we have zero tolerance for whining of any kind, and he immediately went and sat in a car seat that we had placed in the bathroom on our main floor. About 10 minutes later, I said to Mason, so, have you cooled down? Mason, yes. Mom, tell me what happened there. I was being sassy. Nice. Beautiful. How many kids could cool down that quickly? Almost none. They'd be sulking and pouting or crying. So why do they do that? Because their mother isn't strong enough. A child who whines is not a child problem. Memorize that. It's a mother problem or a father problem, whoever's there. Their mother doesn't know enough about loving and teaching to even consider the move that this mother made, or to prepare the child for the move. She'd done this before, so he knew what was happening. Now, me speaking to Mom, you calmly, elegantly required him to feel a consequence for his behavior immediately, instead of letting life teach him about consequences. Life has no mercy. Life teaches by natural law. For the rest of his life, according to those laws, as a result of being an angry, entitled, controlling brat, what happens? They don't give him a fine. No, life just dictates that he will lose relationships and people will avoid him and he'll fail in the workplace. Disaster. Mom, responding to Mason saying I was being sassy, she says, yeah, you were. And she says, I helped him out a little bit more. She said, you were feeling annoyed that you couldn't use your computer, and so you chose to respond in a complaining, whining way to me. Mason, yeah. And then he plopped down on the couch and picked up a book to read. And I, Mom, continued working on the puzzle that I was doing. About 5 minutes later, Mom says, it was Mason's and my scheduled time to do what we call loves. She says, this is something my husband and I do with each of our 4 boys every evening before bedtime. And they've been doing this for months. For 15 minutes or so, we hold each child individually. Not every child gets mom and dad, but they get one of the 2 of them. We talk with them. We look them in the eyes. We stroke their hair and face and backs. And we love them and laugh with them and tell stories to them. We hold them close and love them. And as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, I want to move to your house for loves. It's glorious. Mom, so it was time for me to hold Mason for loves. Kid, you've really changed your world. Speaking to Mom, almost every parent in the world sees bedtime as a chore to be accomplished. Does that sound familiar to every parent? Or a relief from taking care of the kids? We'll throw them in bed. But not you. You're grasping the glorious opportunity to love your kids. It's an opportunity that bedtime affords, particularly in abundance, because they're tired, mostly undistracted, and vulnerable. Ooh, great time to love them. Mom says, Mason, brush your teeth and meet me in your bed for loves. Mason, with a straight face, tests me. You can hear the tone. I don't want to do loves tonight. Mom with a big smile on her face. But that's just what we do before bedtime, so you run along and I'll be in your bed waiting for you. Oh, Mom, you didn't even pause to acknowledge his brief little verbal bullet. Yeah, if you're going to treat me like that, then I'm going to punish you and we're not going to have loves. As though you were offering him, stale bread. Good for you. If you had taken it as him punishing you, it would have interrupted the loving flow that you established. Beautiful. Mom. Now, I must confess a few things. For a split second before I spoke just then to Mason, I didn't feel like doing loves either. Yeah, no kidding. The little kid just spat a verbal bullet at you, and that would be easy to take personally. After all, it was shot at you. Sometimes children are just inconvenient. We like to say their problems, difficult, blah, blah. That's our interpretation of it. But the fact is they are inconvenient. You picture a series of events or sentences that would be easy, and they come up with stuff you just didn't plan on, or stuff that requires you to step up your game. Most parents just fold when they're attacked by a child. They just fold. They lose. They pacify their child, or they get angry attempting to control their child, and they lose, and so does the child. But I sense, as I read this, that you're not going to do that. In real parenting, sometimes you just have to be the one who loves and teaches, whether you feel like it or not. So, way to go, baby. Now, to the audience, this is a great time to hit like, subscribe, and comment, and hit the bell, and all that stuff. And you're going to keep getting priceless pearls like this. His adoration, Mom, of screens was a major trigger for me in days past, and it would have sent my stress through the roof. Well, of course, it's a conversation you've had many times, and this creative child, this child has the gift of creativity. We like that, but we don't like it when he applies his creativity to getting us. This creative child is quite prepared to debate you into the ground, not what you would choose. Inconvenient. Mom says, so our little exchange over the computer just minutes before bugged me a little bit. The Amazon search. Just a little bit. Now I'm getting better, but I'm not perfect. So yeah, for a second, just a second there, I didn't feel like doing loves either. Like, I looked at the clock and thought, well, he's brushing his teeth, and when he gets back, I just hand him a book and we'll go to bed. It would be like no big deal. So like one night I don't hold him, so what? But nah, I didn't even entertain it. It wasn't even a battle between my brain and heart. I knew immediately that times like these are when we need love the most. Kill me, Mom. Beautiful. What a mother. Back to Mom. She says, it truly warms my heart to say this because it's a precious fruit of the labor of love that's been going on in our home for 4 months now. He didn't even hesitate to go brush his teeth and hop back in bed with me for loves. And I pulled him right onto my lap so I could hold him in my arms like a baby. My big 9-year-old darling baby boy. An age when a great number of boys are already into porn. Back to Mom. Parenthetical thought. Mom says, we talked, we laughed hysterically. She says, Mom can be really funny sometimes. We learned, we loved, and I want to highlight a few precious parts of our conversation, Mom says. I'm thinking, would you please, would you be willing to share this sacred conversation between you and your child? Good for all of us. Mom says to Mason, so you didn't want to do loves tonight, eh? So why did we do them anyway? Now, Mason, unprompted, says, so I won't be empty and afraid. Mom says, yeah, that's right. What a sucky way that would be to live, empty and afraid. You want to know another reason? Why? He says, you, my love, have amazing spiritual gifts. And you know a few of them already, yeah? You're creative, inventive, you're exuberant. Remember that? Yeah. Now, right now, Mom, this kid would follow you anywhere. You're teaching him his gifts. You're teaching him about him. This is the gold that almost no children hear. To all parents, children will follow this degree of loving and teaching anywhere. Mom says, yeah, you're amazing, bud. Did you know that you're also a leader? This is new to him. That's a spiritual gift you have. You are a leader. Mason is not impressed and a little skeptical when he says, isn't everyone a leader? This kid can be stone cold, Mom. He won't let you buy him with a superficial compliment. No, he wants to see the evidence that you won't lie to him just to make him feel better, that you won't do superficial praise. It's like he's saying this, oh, yeah, Mom, but you're just saying that because you're my mom. That's what he's saying. And Mom, with wide eyes, says to Mason, no way, not even close. No, not everyone is a leader, but you were born to lead. Mom says, I could see the look of wonder open his eyes. Yeah, you've mesmerized him with the truth and your love. This could never be done with a common compliment. You're so pretty, you're so brave, you're so blah, blah. You're doing the magic of teaching him about his gifts. You're teaching him who he is. Glory be. Mom says, I continued and said, now, do you know what happens with spiritual gifts in people when they don't get loved like this? She's got him now. He doesn't know the answer. No. Mom says they get distorted by fear. Do you know what distorted means? And he says, cray-cray, meaning crazy. And Mom says, to this, I burst out laughing, and we shared a good hearty laugh together. And then I explained what distorted means. And I went on. So without unconditional love, fears and pains distort the expression of our spiritual gifts, like Hitler, for example. She says her son is really into history. So Mason cuts her off and says, oh, I'll bet he had a ton of spiritual gifts as a kid. Kill me. Again, this kid is so creative, so tuned into truth, that he doesn't just fall into the simplistic accusation that all adults make, that Hitler is simply a monster. No, he sees far deeper than that. Mom says, yes, he did. Extraordinary gifts. But did his mother love him like this? like I'm doing with you? Mason says, no. Mom says, as a side note, I don't think he knows history about Hitler's mother, but he was getting the picture. Good call. Never let the facts get in the way of a great story. Mom says, right, his mother didn't. He was an extremely gifted speaker and leader, but his gifts became distorted with all kinds of pain and fear, and he ended up being the leader of a massacre of millions of people. Now, Mom's not criticizing Hitler's mother, but it is a fact that children who feel unconditionally loved and who are taught don't do that stuff. They're fulfilled. They're excited. They engage their spiritual, emotional, intellectual gifts in creating, inventing, discovering, connecting. It's a glorious thing to see. Hitler was notably lacking in those things, but he did have those gifts. Mom says, Mason pondered. A moment later, I continued with excitement in my voice because I could feel what I was saying to him. Feel. She said, you're going to have an amazing life, Mason. Your gifts are so fun, and you will lead. So even if you sometimes don't feel like doing loves, you're going to get loved by me anyway. In fact, I love you all the time. I love you unconditionally. Mom says, this pivoted the conversation, but it was precious and worth sharing. So Mason said, unconditionally, like, no matter what I do, that's a challenge from a 9-year-old. Like, prove it. And Mom says, yep, exactly, no matter what you do. And then she paused and said, so when you're being a sassy pants, I love you. She's referring to earlier. When you're being a stinky poopy butt, I love you. She says, Mason's smile is getting bigger and bigger. When you're Mr. Cranky Face, I love you. Just parenthetically to parents who don't like such stuff. Boys never tire of references to poop and farts. You want to interject that in your conversation, you win, even when they're 50. Mom says, our faces were an inch apart. Imagine that, smiling with locked eye contact, the whole conversation. She says, I continued and said, now, am I ever a stinky butt? Yes, he said. We laughed. He loved that. The disarming beauty of the truth. Mom said, yeah, and I can be a sassy pants and cranky, and I can be all those things. It happens sometimes, but a lot less now that I feel loved and I'm loving you. How cool is that? Mom said, 15 minutes. That's how long I held Mason tonight. It's nothing. It's no time at all, but those 15 minutes mean everything. Masterclass. Everything. 15 minutes a day with our children that we brought into the world and send out there completely unprepared if we don't do those 15 minutes. 15 minutes at bedtime transform an attitude of get in bed and get out of my hair into a child feeling, my mom loves me. My dad loves me. I feel so safe that I can talk about anything. I feel inexpressibly empowered with the knowledge of who I am, with what gifts I have, how strong I am, in a world that can be pretty confusing, even crushing. As I read this story myself, I feel like I'm intruding on a holy moment. It's that beautiful. We were not born knowing how to create such moments for our children. We have to learn. And you can learn to do this inexpressibly well by going to realloveparents.com. That's where you learn how to love your child, find love for yourself, and teach them how to prepare for pretty much everything in life. We can do this.